Thank you for your purchase of the AWOK Duo board. The new kit will be included, 1 Duo board PCB with built-in SD card reader, 1 AWOK 24 gapping tool, 1 high-power AWOK 24 module, 1 2.4 GHz external antenna, 1 Wemos Mini ESP32 module with straight header pins, 1 set of 90-degree header pins, and 1 snapshot enclosure with header pin protector. We will first start off by placing our gapping tool on the AWOK module before soldering it on the PCB. Be sure to slide it up as far as possible to keep the AWOK properly gapped during the solder process. Next, we will insert the AWOK into the PCB on the back side where it says AWOK 24 mount this side. Now here is the trickiest part of the whole build process. You will need to balance the AWOK on the back side while putting pressure on the PCB to keep it properly spaced. You can also try and place something of the same height under the board to make sure it doesn't rock too much. As you can see here, we need to tack just 1 pin down with solder to keep the module gapped correctly. Once that single pin has been soldered, you can make sure the module is straight and adjust accordingly to line it up correctly with a little pressure. Now that we have verified that the module is straight and correctly adjusted, we can start soldering the rest of the pins. We will use PCB stands in this video, but you can use whatever you have available to make the rest of the process easier for you. Once done, remove the spacer and inspect to make sure everything looks lined up. Now we will install the ESP32. You can flash it with the Marauder firmware before or after this process, it's up to you. Having the PCB elevated like this can make the process easier. Start by placing the header pins into the through holes. Slide the ESP32 on the header pins like so. Make sure the USB port is facing away from the skull logo or else the module will not work. Solder every pin under the board as shown here. Make sure to take your time and do not use a lot of solder in this process. Doing so can cause your pins to short out together and will be difficult to remove excess solder because of the close spacing of the pins. Now that this process is done, we can flip the PCB over. While placing pressure on the PCB, tack down 2 pins on the board as shown here. We want to only tack down 1 pin on each side of the board opposite of one another to make sure it sits in place correctly. As you can see here, we ran into an issue where the ESP did not sit correctly on the PCB. All we need to do is reheat the solder on the pin that is having issues sitting flush while placing pressure on the PCB. If you look closely, you will see the board snap down, meaning the module has moved into place. After inspecting everything is okay, we can finish soldering all the remaining pins. Let's move on to the 90-degree header pins. With the board facing up, place the pins into the designated through holes and solder just 1 pin from each, preferably the closest pin to the middle in order to tack the headers in place. Make sure that they are flush with the PCB before moving to the next step. Now flip the PCB over and begin to solder all 18 pins. The ground pins, which are the square pads, will need a little extra heating to make sure that they are fully soldered down. Inspect all your solder points before placing the module into its enclosure. Now that we have the module into the enclosure, snap the top cover on. You should hear an audible snapping sound. Inspect the case and make sure it is fully closed. If you need to open the case for updates to the ESP32 module at a later time, there is a small lip on top of the case near the antenna to make it easy to reopen it. Now plug it into your Flipper Zero and enjoy.